Hello, everybody. This is William del Pilar, and this is Fired Up California, where we talk things, all things California, and we've got a heck of a show for you guys today. We have a big education episode today, only because there is so much happening regarding education between the federal government, protests, visa revocations. So we're going to devote a good chunk of time to that. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the homelessness. A couple of ugly issues have reared their head. Well, ugly if you're a Democrat, but pretty good if you're a conservative like us that have been screaming for accountability. And then we're going to talk about a lawsuit towards a California congressional representative that I am glad it's happening. We have to get civility versus the hate and actual false lies, and congressional representatives using the floor of Congress to protect themselves from repercussions. Someone slipped up. And then we're going to close it out with our growing favorite, actually, and that is our Cali-Blitz, where we take a quicker than average look at happenings around the state. And with that, let me bring in my co-host, Mr. Tyler Collins, who is fresh back from Japan. Well, not so fresh back from Japan, but it's been a little while, as we did a show. Was it last week we did a show, or is this our first show?
We did. Yeah. No,
yeah.
we did a show last week. Yeah.
There you go. So,
but I was in a different location, though. I was shooting from my stepdad's office. So
there you go. Yeah, and it was ironic, people, because off camera, it's his stepfather, who's much older, showing the young buck how to set it up and get it going. When usually it's the other way around, the young kid helping out the elder to get it going. So that was a little bit different. So how you been doing, Tyler? How's local California politics?
I'm good. Local California, San Diego politics. This is kind of crazy as always. We touched on it a bit last week, and I really don't want to go that much into it this week. The party is in a bit of disarray. Like, there's potentially a public corruption case. There's this big article now that's out in the San Diego Times of San Diego. And so, yeah, the party is having trouble.
Oh, is that from Kent Stone? Is that the article by Kent Stone?
Yeah, I think this is the one we're talking about. Yeah, so
yeah. Kent Stone is the only.
Besides that, though, besides the party, I am doing well personally. Recently got a new job. I don't know if your viewers knew, so I ran for Carlsbad City Council, and I did that full time. And so actually, I lost that race. I got 42%. Didn't win though. And so I'm a software engineer, so I had to get another full-time job. So I just secured that, and I'll be starting in late April.
Outstanding. Yeah. Well, hopefully this show won't conflict with what they want you to do. So you better look into that. We conservatives are, if California had its way, we'd be go along the lines of the dodo bird. But we're more like the coelacanths. You know, you may think you got us taken out, but we'll show up somewhere. And with that, Tyler, let's get right into. Actually, I apologize. Before we get right into it, to the audience. First of all, thank you for joining us. Second, make sure you bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. grumblingsmedia.com. That is our website where you'll find this article as well as our other conservative article, this podcast, as well as other conservative podcasts, as well as sports and libertarian podcasts. So you can find that there. And you're probably listening to this via Rumble, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. So make sure you follow us there as well, or subscribe to us on those channels. So Tyler, let's get right into it. I want to first of all get into the, I think on top, my first topic that I have listed is the turmoil in California education. And I bring that up again because during that brief intro there's federal policy issues, protests happening that's being stymied because these kids don't know the difference between a violent protest that intimidates other students and they try to hide behind the shield of the First Amendment, too ignorant to understand the First Amendment does not protect intimidation, violence, or whatnot, or bigotry, or racism. It does not, when it comes to public demonstrations. There are clear guidelines on that, and that's led to visa revocation, being being revoked, and there's other controversies. So let's get into the very first one that deals with some federal policy impact. The Trump administration's executive order is targeting illegal protests, and that has led to my alma mater, Cal State University San Marcos, to ban unapproved gatherings of over 10 people and to require protest pre-registration. And the same order, so let's start there actually. I like that, but I don't like it. Only because, well, let's go with what are your thoughts before we get into the discussion?
I don't like it, to be quite honest. That's specifically that they're requiring protest pre-registration on gatherings of over 10 people. This seems not in the spirit of the First Amendment.
Well, my issue, I'll give you some pushback. When you go file a permit to go protest, you got to file a permit to say you're going to go protest. So I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is they're trying to pit this, or the government's trying to take your First Amendment rights away instead of educating the kids. Hey, there are legalities to what you can and can't do. And when you have professors in some other state, there was a professor who's probably going to get fired for flipping over a conservative table while they were out in the, it's been so many years since I was in college, the area where,
the quad, right?
At the quad, thank you, at the quad. And so when you have the professors and the teachers promulgating this hate, that's the issue I have with this. These kids, they just need to be educated. What you can and can't do. Getting in somebody's face, spitting at somebody, and these things have happened. Intimidating them, threatening them. All that's out. That's not protected by the free speech. So what bothers me is this seems to me to just show a lack of doing their jobs of educating people on what the Constitution really means. Your thoughts on am I looking at it wrong or right? I think I'm looking at it very fair. If they knew what they could and couldn't do, we wouldn't have the problem of an administration threatening to take away federal dollars if they don't follow the law.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also to what you were saying, in some cases, it's the teachers themselves and the administrators who are encouraging these illegal protests. For example, I saw there was a Columbia professor. It was a visiting professor, and he was, I think it was like for an Arab studies class, he was talking about land back and essentially all the academically dressed up arguments for from the river to the sea. And so he was openly advocating for this and for essentially the destruction of the state of Israel. And so he, in his classes, is teaching this to his students. And oftentimes, some of these professors are the agitators themselves who are either in the background orchestrating these student movements or directly involved. And so it's not just simply a matter of, well, the kids weren't correctly instructed about the First Amendment. They have actively been egged on in many cases by these professors.
Exactly. So I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm just like, so with that stated, we're gonna go back and forth on some of these topics, but it's all federally based. So let's go over to USC and the Daily Trojan. Again, we're talking about budgets being cut,
and that's my alma
dollars
mater.
being taken out. What's that?
That's my alma mater.
There you
USC.
Go.
So we talk about San Marcos, and now we get to talk about the Trojans. So
so their budget was cut by 30% to the Daily Trojan, and I know it's a paper, but I assume that's your school paper, and it eliminated 5 reporter positions, and that was done maybe I want to say approximately 2 weeks ago due to federal funding threats. They say now their issue is that. Well, this is going to take away the independent freedom that we have. I'm like, independent? Y'all are nothing but mouthpieces for the same professor, like the Columbia type professor you described. And I think there would be none of this would be happening if these universities would be what they say they are, bastions of free expression, bastions where we can talk it out, discuss, debate. And because they have not become that, including these university papers that have become very bigoted, in some cases anti-Semitic, I'm like, they still don't get it. It's like you're losing your reporters, and you still think you have a hill to stand on when the reason you're losing it partially is political because you won't actually do what a reporter's supposed to do: report unbiased information. Your thoughts on your alma mater?
Well, this is happening across the country. You're seeing private and public institutions kind of caving to Trump's demands, the demands of the administration to roll back DEI and roll back some of these racist things that they're promulgating. And a lot of this is coming from potentially the student newspapers and other outlets like that. And so this is just another example. USC, in this case, is rolling back the student newspaper because, like you said, sometimes the news they're putting out, it's not just free expression. This is created by the professors. They've created in the minds of the students very anti-Semitic and racist attitudes, which are now being expressed in the newspapers.
Right, and that's one reason I got involved politically, because as a Latino that has both, that we run the full spectrum in the skin color of our skin to our culture. You know, we have gay, we have straight, we have those who are highly educated, we have those who are still, you know, barely know how to write. So that's why I got involved, and my belief is it was deemed okay because it was minorities being bigots, and that was tolerated early on. But the pushback is there's like, you're not being bigoted, you're just being outright racist, and that has to stop. Or you're being outright anti-Semitic, and that has to stop. And if you don't like this country, why are you here learning from this country as a visa student? We'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, I agree with you. It's that has to stop. For us to unify, Tyler, I think we all have to look in the mirror. A black man, a black woman, a Latino man, a Latino woman, an Anglo, an Asian, a Native American, an Indian from India. We all need to look at the mirror and go, we're not perfect. Hate is taught. So racism and bigotry is within us all. Right now, I think you have only whites can be racist. And I'm like, no, that's not how hate works. And Thomas Sowell, a black libertarian economist, as you well know, he kind of talked about this in all his books, you know, and I think that should be mandatory reading his books, because then we'd be able to get along. We'd be able to look in the mirror, understand we're human. We'd be able to come together as a country, as Americans. Right now, I have Latino relatives who go, oh, I'm Latino first, American second. And I'm like, that's what I call the destruction of a country from within. You know,
Roosevelt touched on this. There's a famous quote by Roosevelt, and he's saying that this kind of harkens back to the age of Ellis Island in America. Bring us your tired, bring us your needy, bring us your hungry. He said, yes, all these people around the world, this is Roosevelt now, the Teddy variety, not FDR. He's saying, we're welcoming all these people around the world of different cultures. But when you come here, you are no longer an Italian or from England or German. You are now an American. There can be no split allegiances.
I agree.
We're welcome everyone, but there are no split allegiances. You must be American and American first and truly American only eventually.
Exactly. I agree. That's my whole belief system. We have to be Americans first, or this country within a few generations will become Europe, and then the whole world will suffer. So moving on, though, from that, we're not really moving on. Just another extension here now is in 2023, the Supreme Court said you can't be racist. You can't remove Asians who have earned a slot and replace them with the lawsuit dealt with black Americans, because that was the book that was being replaced. But in essence, you can't take the Asian slot for whomever. That is racism. That is illegal. That is bigotry. That is discrimination is what they use. But peeling the layers, it includes all that. So the DOJ is investigating Stanford, Berkeley, UCLA, UC Irvine to make sure they're in compliance. Because even though the Supreme Court ruled on this, they're playing the shell game, still doing it, but in various ways. I applaud all these motions, because everything they're fighting against the DOJ right now is to bring back balance of equality for everyone, because these are very lopsided. And to me, Asians, it's been going around for about a month and a half now. I guess there's this Asian kid scored perfectly on his SATs, like 4 point whatever, so smart. Right after high school, he got hired for a very high-end Google job. He was turned down from every university here in California. You know? So your thoughts on that investigation?
Well, the investigation is good. The case you're talking about, where this kid, he scored perfect SAT scores, had a 4.0 in high school, and like you said, he got turned down from, I believe, every university he applied to, or at least
Correct.
every Ivy League, which he should have gotten into based on merit, 100%, but he didn't. And in such an obvious case like that, he got hired right out of the gate by Google, because Google said, look, this person obviously is very skilled. Let's just hire them. And so that's kind of the battle that's going on. And going back to what you said about the cases, even though the Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot do affirmative action, you cannot discriminate based on race, they're still doing it. And so that's what this probe is about, because they switched from now actually being able to put a box where you could say I'm Black or I'm Asian American. And now it's all about, oh, your character score and your essay. Oh, we're going to give them more points because they're from a certain background. And so they've just kind of like snuck it under the radar. But the Trump DOJ is saying, no, you can't do that, because that's in the spirit of violating the Supreme Court ruling. So I think this is good. They're going after him.
Exactly. And it's not just the schools I listed. What Trump has done here is the schools not listed that aren't being investigated, they're on notice. They know they're on notice now. They know he's going to go after anyone if they're ignoring the law, as suspected here. And what it is, they're going to face, what's V1 in regular? What's V1, Roman numerals? Is that Title 6?
Title 6, yeah.
Title 6 and 4. I always get my Roman numerals screwed up if they're not 5, but I should have known that one. V is 5 and 1 is I is 1. So Title 6 enforcement, and this is potential loss of billions. Okay, let's go back here to San Marcos real quick on the protesters. Now, the students, Maria Lopez, who obviously should never have gotten into college with her intellectual ability to understand what free speech is. That's my personal take. And yes, I'm harder on my own Latinos than I am on others. But she says, this is about silencing us, not safety. I love talking like that Nazi-esque soldier, because that's how I view these people. You know, this is about silencing us, not safety. And, and I think she's lying. And again, we talked about it, but I just wanted to put a name to the chaos. This Maria Lopez doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. And the rules reiterate they're trying to curb the chaos, not speech. They're trying to curb the violent protests we've seen nationwide. So the First Amendment is not just a car blanche. And I think CSU is looking at those federal dollars. Now, some people may say, well, they shouldn't be looking at federal dollars. They need to be taking care and educating students. No, it's a balance. Yeah, they need the money to keep growing. They need the money to support their programs. So this has led, Tyler, to the visa revocations for some international students. So that example I gave you was in San Marcos, but it's happening all over the state. And there was an incident with UC Davis. On April 5th, the Trump administration revoked the F1 visas for 12 international students at UC Davis. I think my problem I have here is not with Trump. My problem is with the average American thinking that kids on visa programs have the exact same rights as a U.S. citizen. That's my problem. Am I looking at this right? Or should they have the exact same rights as an American citizen?
No, people with visas, it's a different thing. You're here on a visa, you're a guest of our country. I will say, though, there was also an incident of someone who had a green card that was actually deported or in the process of being deported. And once you have green card, this is legal permanent residency, you are actually entitled to more things that a citizen would be. You do have due process in certain things that someone with a visa, it couldn't just be revoked at will without some sort of formal thing.
Well, I think it all depends. So, for example, the kid, the Mahmoud Khalid right now in Colombia,
that's what I'm talking about.
He found out he was caught lying on his visa. So the fact he lied on his visa application in and of itself is rules for termination of his green card. Now, maybe he has to present that in the court, and that's what they're going through right now. A lot of these court decisions, the experts are expecting the Supreme Court to rule in favor, and they're saying it's an overreach. But I got to be honest, in today's activist judge all over the country, I grow in fear that we are not going to be ruled by an executive or a congressional body, but we're going to be ruled by an activist judiciary. Now, I am oversimplifying it because the Congress could just revoke and take all the powers away. The only thing Congress can't take the power away from is the SCOTUS, which is embedded in this Constitution. But every court below the Supreme Court is under the jurisdiction of Congress in some form or fashion, meaning Congress may have given the power, say, to the DOJ or something of that nature, but every court outside of the Supreme Court is under that jurisdiction. So I may be going over the top here, but my point is that's what we're seeing right now with these judges. But the wider context of all this, though, is this is Trump's immigration crackdown from top to bottom. Whether it's right or wrong, Tyler, comment on this. I think we're at what's happening now is a product of over leniency. So maybe where you look at a situation and go, well, let's figure this out. We have given so much and allowed so many murders, crimes, all that negative stuff to happen to the point now the other side is enough and they don't care what your story is. Get out of the country. So I'm not sure our side is 100% in the right as much as this is a backlash over all the hate, anger, and angst a lot of these immigrants have caused. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the pendulum is swinging to the other side now, and things are happening very fast. I saw there was some comedian, it was on YouTube, and he was saying, man, Trump didn't even take a break. It was day one. He started deporting people. He said, I get home from work. I usually make pizza, watch some TV before I start doing things. But Trump, he didn't watch no TV. He just got right to deporting. So that's what they're doing. And they're doing this with a very heavy hand. And unfortunately, they are getting some people caught up in this dragnet that potentially shouldn't be caught up in there. A couple of cases. You're right.
Let me give you a case. So somebody's been in the country 30 years. They haven't broken any laws, or I'm sorry, entering the country illegally. They've broken laws, but they never tried to become a citizen. They never went for the programs. They just stayed illegal. Technically, they're right. In an environment that's more, hey, let's work together, you can look at, okay, let's see how we make you a citizen. But instead, you're here 30 years, you didn't sit there and attempt to do it. So while they may be legally right, there are moral and ethic questions in that scenario. But most people are like, I don't care anymore. Lake and Riley's family is going to suffer for the rest of their life because somebody did what you did. You may not have killed somebody, but you fell under the same laws as that person who did. So fair or not, that's what's happening. I think you said it best. The pendulum has swung. The pendulum was like this high, and now sadly it swung to this high. Whereas if everything was in the middle, we could work some things out. It's like dreamers. How do you deport somebody who was born and raised here but isn't a citizen? I say they move here as a child. They don't even speak the language, but our country's at a point enough. Too many murders, too much crime, too much preferential treatment has been given to people off the backs of the taxpayers. And I think that's why we're in this situation. Final comment on that before we move on to the transgender issue.
And you talked about the pendulum, and I think we might continue to see the pendulum. I don't think it's stopped swinging to the other direction. We're still only a few months into this new administration, and Tom Homan may have some more other tricks up his sleeve. We don't know what Stephen Miller is thinking. Who knows where this is going to go? But.
Well, here's the problem. We have, they used the 10, 11 million number up until about 8 years ago, but they used it up to then. That number was from 1987. Professionals who are statisticians say, no, you're looking at about 30 million. Now they're saying we can have up to 50 million illegals. You've got to take, because those are people who are a burden on our social services. The easiest example is, because it was all in the news last year, is the Springfield and all the Haitians that were dropped there, and they literally destroyed the economy, the foundational structure of a community, and they've taken over everything. Whether it's good or bad does not matter. What I said is true. They've destroyed it, and they weren't paying taxes on top of that, but they were taking the social services, which is ironic because what surfaced recently, Tyler, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, where Chuck Schumer's on video saying, the illegals come here for one reason, to leech off our social services. So what we're saying is true. What the other side is demanding from our side is to have compassion, but yet they lack that compassion when Americans were being murdered, raped, pillage, communities taken over, apartment complexes in Aurora taken over. William, you're cherry picking. No, I'm not. You can go across every state and find example after example. And the fact they come over, they're breaking the law. It's like my producer Big John once said, it's just a misdemeanor. Really? Tell that to Lake and Riley's parents. Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase what I saw some other conservative arguments online. Essentially, what's happened right now, the pendulum has swung, but it's not just that. It's like you said, there's no way now to reach some sort of compromise or negotiation, because what happened, the left showed us what they did when they had power, and they abused their power, and they used their power, and they flooded our country with millions and millions. You said up to 50 million people potentially. Despite the right saying, hey, can we compromise? Can we try and fix immigration? Can we try and do this and that? And the left, they put their boot on us and said, no, this is what we're doing because we want to rig elections in swing states.
Exactly.
Why would we compromise an inch with the left? They showed us what they did when they had power. Now we have the power. Why are we going to show them any mercy? You sow the wind. You sow the wind. You reap the whirlwind.
That's true. Absolutely true. All right. Let us move on to another funding threat cut. Trump's administration is threatening to cut California's $10 billion in annual K-12 federal funds, mainly for special education in Title I, over a state law banning schools from telling parents what's happening to their kids. Meaning, and the reason I say it this way, y'all may not like it, but it's the truth. Teachers are indoctrinating their kids. Oh, you have questions? You're probably gay and just don't know it. Let's work on your gayness. Oh, I like girls. No, you don't. You really like guys. So let's work on that. But we're not going to tell your parents. Codifying that in the law is all of a sudden the schools are saying, you're not the teacher, parents. We are. Now, I have simplified it, but what I have done is I pulled every layer back to get to the core ugly truth of what they're doing. And Trump says, no, enough. Your thoughts on that? But real quick, Newsom and Bonta are vowing to sue if funding is withheld. Again, they'll eventually lose in the court of law, but it's probably going to have to make it up to SCOTUS because of the activist judges. The one thing the audience needs to know is Democrats cherry pick to go find the most liberal court. That's why Trump's losing so many of these early on. Your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, the jurisdictional battle, that's something unfortunate there. Like you said, it's coming down. The judges are having a lot of power, and especially in certain activist judges in particular areas. But I think that the threatening to cut this funding because essentially violations of parental rights, I think that's good that they're threatening to do that. In general, I would say I don't like it if the federal government intrudes on something that should be left to the states. I'm in agreement with the policy that we need to restore parental rights. Do I like that it takes that the federal government actually has to do this in California? Not really. But we don't have the conservative base here in California to actually do what we want.
Right. And I think what it boils down to is the government is breaking an ethical responsibility. They are morally in the wrong by stating, parents, you don't have a choice in how your child is raised. And at the core of all this, that's what they're saying. My take is there's a story I read on a social media platform. The parents said, hey, my boy said, or my boy said he wanted to be a girl. Instead of lopping off his genitals and taking him to begin puberty blockers, we sat him down and talked to him. It turns out he wanted to be a girl because he thought his older sister was getting more attention from us than we were giving to him. But I'm
going to play devil's advocate here, though, a little bit and say, well, what if Kamala was elected and now she said that private Catholic schools in Texas had to fly the pride flag?
Well, that's different because there are actual laws to protect religious institutions. See, that's the thing. You can't do a pushback without understanding, well, that falls under this law. I'm not talking to you in general because they come, well, let me give you this scenario. Well, what's the law say about that scenario? So there's different. Religion is protected. That is a protected. So that no, that doesn't fall under what you're doing. In fact, it's even worse because there's already 10 zillion laws that state you can't do that. But they have tried that, and all those cases have fallen to the wayside, and the religious schools have won. So, but I get what you're saying. But that's what's that saying you said? You reap you sow the wind.
You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind.
Yeah, and that's what's happening here with that. In that sense. So I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the state is trying to take the parents' rights away. And my take is, as much as I loathe Hillary, she's a vile, evil human being. And the day she dies, she's going to go, damn, it's warm in here. Where am I at? We know, but I don't mean it in the way she said it. When she said it takes a village, she's meaning it takes Democrat indoctrination to raise your kid. It does take a village. The worst thing that happened with dual income parenting is the kid got lost in the shuffle. So I think it takes both the school and the parent working together to help raise the child, because the kid spends as much time, if not more time, with school teachers and classmates than he does with the parents who are working, come home, and they're in a structured environment, feed, do homework, go to bed, So, but that's communication. That's the parent talking to the teacher. Yeah, little Johnny thinks he's a girl. Really? Little Johnny, he's my future porn star. He can't think that way. Yeah, I'm kidding. But the point being is, that conversation. So how do you want to tackle that? How do you want to tackle little Johnny? And if the parent wants to go, that's my domain. I'll handle it. That's fine. But the parent could go, well, you're the teacher. You've probably seen this a lot more than I have. What do you recommend? And that's how you work together. It's no different than, little Johnny's got D's, not my little Johnny. He's a smart kid. No, little Johnny's a rock. How do we tackle little Johnny to make him the smart kid you want? So that's how it should be done, and it's not. The progressive side has deemed it. We will indoctrinate your child. We will not teach your child. Okay, let's get to a couple other topics before we close the education one out. I don't want to beat it to death, but we could literally sit there. We could talk about this all day long. So, crossing the line. This is what the left does all the time, and they try to hide it under the guise of free speech. BLM murdered people, killed people, violence, $2 billion in property damage. And through that whole year, these are just friendly protests. Remember the MSNBC shot? This is a friendly protest.
Mostly peaceful protests. There's the fires.
Yeah, the fire's raging. So here's a Fresno State lecturer, Catherine Sharik. Let's make sure we get her name out there. Catherine Sharik posted this past January, it's just coming out, wishing death on Trump and Musk on Instagram. She had Trump in a casket with former presidents and Melania smiling. And with I have a dream, this was her, I have a dream for this to happen much sooner rather than later. And she had it tagged, fell on Trump, traitor Trump, rapist Trump, died Trump, Trump is dead. She had a Facebook post featuring Trump's gravestone, from his birth in 46 to now, saying now would be good, adding and take Musk and the rest of the Nazi Republican Party members. To me, she should be immediately fired. That's not her job as a university. It's supposed to be about debate. Having free expression, being able to see what she says. She just wants it her way. Hate. And if that inspires another Bernie Sanders constituent, or not constituent, a Bernie Sanders loving fan to go shoot congressmen on a baseball field, she's okay with that. If that happened to Trump, she probably applauded the two attempts against Trump's life. So, then she offered extra credits in March for students to attend a Tesla protest. Your thoughts on this shrew?
This is just like the example of the Columbia professor. In this case, they're literally giving a student or offering extra credit for attending a Tesla protest. It's just such a clear violation. You're not supposed to be doing that as a teacher. She should have been fired the day after.
Exactly. Now, Fresno State has launched an internal review of Sharik's conduct, focusing on the extra credit offer with no outcome, no legal charges. Look, I'm sorry. I love that saying, whatever with the wind, you reap the whirlwind. My take, I'm Trump. I'm the Department of Education. I'm Mrs. McMahon. I forget her first name. Linda McMahon. I'm targeting you, baby girl. Your school is receiving not one shred of funding. My reason, you're promoting hate. You're promoting everything that's against the guidelines for you to receive money. So be it. I guarantee you, as soon as they saw the email header, you're fired. Get out. So I mean, I sound rough, but that's what it takes to get these people to stop with the hate. The final topic here. I'm sorry. Any final comments on that?
Well, let's just not forget what the Biden administration has done to people over the years. People think, oh, what the Trump administration is doing right now is so brutal. Oh, these poor schools. Oh, these poor administrators. Well, what about all the people during COVID, service members and emergency responders and federal employees who refused to get the vax, and they lost their jobs and they lost their livelihoods? Oh, well, it wasn't so brutal then, Mr. Liberal. We were just protecting our community. Well, what about the people whose lives you ruined? What about them?
And what about the DOJ calling parents who just went to school board meetings to complain, calling them and putting them as domestic terrorists?
Literally putting them on a terrorist watch list. Yep, people who showed up to school board meetings.
And there was not one incident of any violence from those parents. The violence was always a confrontation of the leftists going up. I looked that one up and I was stunned. There was not one iota of violence at all. And yet they were the ones deemed domestic terrorists. I believe Garland should be brought up on charges for that. That is a complete abuse of his power. All right, UC Berkeley anti-Semitism lawsuit can move ahead. On April 2nd, 2025, the U.S. District Judge James Donato ruled that the Jewish groups can pursue claims against UC Berkeley alleging unrelenting anti-Semitic harassment under equal protection. They're alleging it because that's how they have to do it legally. We saw the video. It's clear as day. So it was filed in 2023 and amended. Do you have any issues with this?
No.
I'm on board with you. All right, my friends. Look, California's educators, their students, their administrators.
I saw all the videos of these things happening. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, we all saw it. So all the educators, students, administrators, Tyler, they are facing high stakes right now, but the high stakes have been brought out because of the vile hate progressives have pushed, wanting to normalize it and then crying victim when we try to stop it. I eventually see figures like Thurman, one of the dissenters, Maria Lopez or whatever the hell her name is, and the campus activists who prioritize indoctrination over educating their students to lose their federal funds, to sit there and continue this until Trump drops a hammer and actually stops. And it's working so far because he hasn't stopped it, but he's giving them enough warning for them to change it. Now, my final take on this is, and Tyler's already talked about it a bit, these same groups, they've often, as we saw with the Jewish and the anti-Semitism, they often violently block conservative speakers, whether it's Ben Shapiro and Culture or whatnot, mimicking the suppression they criticize and state our government is doing to them, which our government is not. Our government's just saying, you broke the law here, or you broke the guidelines for that visa, or the regs, So when held accountable for crossing the lines, they decry it as unfair retribution. And it's not, and I'm happy it's happening, because until we get our education system to teach and to be able to express your opinion and to freely debate it, our country's future is lost in the long run. All right, Tyler. Matt Taibbi. I'm bringing Matt Taibbi. As most people don't know, hardcore leftist. Now he's more independent. He's not a conservative. And that kind of situation shows there's leftists out there who goes, damn, we've flung so far to the left, I look conservative now. So Matt Taibbi, he's known mostly for the Twitter files. Remember when Elon bought Twitter and a few reporters had all this access? That's how Matt Taibbi got famous. He is suing Representative Sidney Calm-Ligeia Dove. She's a Democrat, congressional representative out here in California. She's suing her in Los Angeles Superior Court. And for defamation after she accused him of being a serial sexual harasser during and beyond a congressional hearing. And that's important because in Congress. Well, the lawsuits origin. Again, she's calling him a serial sexual harasser. That happened in early March at the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee, and then she's protected there. So I have a section on here. She's protected by the speech or debate clause in Article 1, Section 6 of the U.S. Constitution. And Tyler, that states that senators and representatives shall not be questioned in any other place for any speech or debate in either house. And that means they are legally untouchable. Where she screwed up, she said it where she was protected, but then said it outside those realms on social media. And he acknowledged, I can't say anything when you say it in the house, but I can sure as hell sue the hell out of you when you say it publicly. Your thoughts on that? It's a $10 million lawsuit.
Yeah, if someone is libelous or defamatory towards you, then they should be entitled to get damages recovered for that, for your reputation and loss of business. So that's a totally fair game. And you're right. That is where she messed up. She could have stuck with just saying these things where she was protected, but no, she had to go and post on Twitter and do this and that. And Matt said, all right, you crossed the line. And so she's getting what she deserves.
Do you think Taibbi should go all the way through the sewer, or should just seek an apology? Or what are your thoughts on how far he should go?
Well, if Taibbi is innocent, then yeah, he should go all the way through to sue her. Now, I want to say if someone had come forward and accused Matt of sexual harassment, then we should take their claim seriously. But that does not sound like what this is. It sounds like a third party just making some defamatory statements about Matt Taibbi. So this just seems totally.
And there's a tweet. There is not much a person can say to a member of Congress hiding behind the speech and debate clause of the Constitution. I can, however, respond to a member arrogant enough to repeat defamatory claims on social media. See below for the $10 million libel lawsuit filed today. They do use that clause to hide, and they use it to denigrate, to try to decimate their opponent, whether it's political or a constituent. So I want them to win. I want them to win to send a message, because people are viewing social media as an extension of their time on the floor. And it's not. And I think the courts will protect that. So eventually what you're going to happen is once they're holding office, they're no longer going to have access to their social media accounts. They'll have a gatekeeper. No, boss, you can't say this for legal reasons. Whether that's right or wrong does not matter. You want people who choose to serve, they need to understand, yes, you are given a lot of leeway, but you're also under the gun, and everything you say will come under scrutiny, as it should be. Any final thoughts on this before we move on?
No, let's keep going.
All righty. So Matt Taibbi's $10 million libel lawsuit. And remember her name, people. Representative Sidney Calm-Ligeia Dove. Or Calm-Ligeia Dove. Or, as I say, Representative Sidney the Idiot Dove. Highlights the risk lawmakers face when they extend their accusations beyond the speech or debate clause's shield. And I hope she pays a price. All right, let's get into the Los Angeles homelessness. We talk about this a lot, and because not only homelessness a problem, but it's a fact the fire that happened in LA wildfires has created more homelessness, and a lot of the homeless start fires. So since we started Fired Up California 9 weeks ago, Tyler, this is like the never ending topic here. So in a dramatic escalation of LA's homelessness crisis, a federal judge blasted Tyler, the region's spending, as a slow train wreck. I thought he was being kind by saying a slow train wreck. You know, it's worse than that. And he actually threatened court intervention. That was like, bam, the first punch. Then comes the uppercut. You know, LA County leaders voted to strip hundreds of millions from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority amid audits which exposed rampant mismanagement. Before I throw it on to you, the polite way of saying this is, as I have it in my notes, systemic failures and a contentious rift between the city and county over how to address this, with the courts also weighing in. To me, This is nothing but the beginning of exposing vile corruption where people have purposely enriched themselves to the tune of six figures. And it doesn't start with just one person. It starts with the person in charge, six figures, and then everybody gets their cut and nothing actually happens. Case in point, completely unrelated, but the same type of environment are the tiny homes we talked about last week. 750 million. Where'd the money go? Not a home's been built. The homeless situation is similar, don't you think?
Yeah, it is kind of similar. And like you're saying, we're just starting to peel away. This is the first layer of the onion. And I think it's going to go all the way down. And then we're going to see this is really, as a lot of people have suspected, I think this is really rotten to the core, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The judge is U.S. District Court Judge David O. Cotta. I say Carter because I grew up with Welcome Back Carter, and I forget the character, Mr. Carter, the New York accent. Tyler wasn't even born back then, but y'all remember that show was massive. In fact, Tyler, little tidbit, that show is what gave John Travolta his big break. He played the role of Vinnie Barbarino. So anyway, David O. Cotta, he convened a hearing, and he's the one who called it a train wreck. His issue was, y'all can't track the billions you've been given. 7 to 10 billion. It could be even more. It's supposed to be to take care of the homeless, and y'all can't even tell me where it's gone. And that was his issue. So he's demanded an audit, the probe, the potential. He says potential fraud and waste. We know it's corrupt beyond just fraud and waste. And for legal reasons, we're speculating, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to come to that conclusion. And they get money because they pass something called Measure H, and that's a 1/4-cent sales tax that the LA voters approved in 2017. And that's generated already over 355 million they can't account for. The audits go back to 2007 that they can't. And that's what triggered the Board of Supervisors pulling back, and they said they wanted to just start a brand new department to deal with the homeless. I'm not into new departments, but in this case, I think I'm like, you do away with that department and you start anew with this one. But you don't do away with it to the point you're not tracking where it's, you hold them accountable. Your thoughts on the court and how harsh they came, because that kind of came out of nowhere and demanding action. But were you also shocked that the Board of Supervisors also pulling hundreds of millions out potentially?
I'm not shocked. I think this has been, well, besides the situation being a slow moving train wreck, this ultimate conclusion and outcome has also been a slow moving train. We've seen the public turn against these quote unquote nonprofit organizations helping solve the homelessness complex, when really it's not homelessness that's being solved. It's the homelessness industrial complex being fueled, and a lot of higher ups in these nonprofits raking in high six-figure salaries and saying a lot and doing very little, and oftentimes allegedly mismanaging and wasting and perhaps committing outright fraud, allegedly. So I think the interesting thing, though, about this, like you said, so the progressives, and by extension, the LA County Board of Supervisors, they've been with this whole agenda for decades. Why all of a sudden the turn of course to say we're going to replace Laza? Well, I think this is just potentially a hunch. They are concerned about being implicated in the graft, which may be uncovered at Laza. Ooh, and they say, all right, we don't want any sunshine on this. Let's just do away with it. We're going to throw them under the bus. Their whole sweet gig and kickbacks, that's canceled. We're moving on, and we're going to try and start fresh. So we're not implicated in all of this.
Fair. Great point, Tyler. Great, outstanding. I mean, you make a lot of great points, but that one, I hadn't looked at it from that perspective because I just view them all as corrupt. But you're right. It's like, let me distance myself. I can save my political career. I'm going to be governor one day. That's what Mayor Bass probably thought. Now, Mayor, but do you think Mayor Bass and Council Member Isabel Jurado, who I believe are corrupt in their own ways. That's just me saying it. I don't know if they are, but just their track record, what we've seen happen, it's not hard to envision. They say no, 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 senor, no, no, senor judge. We don't need a new department. No, no, border supervisors. Let's just have greater transparency. Do you actually believe that the LAHSA's transparency can happen? They can become transparent. I think they are corrupt. I think they would fight. They would say they would be, but they would fight it every iota they could. And I think it's a good move to just whack them, or because they're going to die without the money. That they'll go away. Do you think they should be given a chance to be transparent though? I mean, theoretically they have a foundation in place, but we're talking 2007. They don't know how far the money goes back. So I think it's beyond saving. Thoughts?
It kind of reminds me, this is a military analogy, and you'd know about this. So there, in certain times in the history of the United States, they've uncovered that certain units had such levels of, let's say they were running a scam on the local population or something. They were going against orders or breaking certain laws, and the corruption went up the chain of command within the unit. Yep. It was seen as so unsolvable that they had to scrap the entire unit and start over from scratch. When something has reached a point of such corruption that the leadership of the organization itself is entrenched in this, you can't simply fix it. It must be thrown out and replaced. So perhaps Laza is there. I think they're probably there.
I agree. And I'm sorry. It's easy for me to point to Democrats because that's who it is in California. But power, what's that saying, Tyler? Power corrupts, and it corrupts absolutely. I don't care what party you're from. The Mitch McConnell. Who's that idiot from Wisconsin who was he followed Boehner, but you had Boehner. You have the guy who Mr. P90X is on the Fox Sport now, Paul Ryan. So when you're there for a while, power corrupts. Nancy Pelosi talked about taxes. That's our money, meaning it's the politicians' money to deem what they want to do with. And that's what I think, Tyler, you're kind of referencing there. It's gone all the way up the chain. They're all corrupt. You got to whack them. So let's hope that happens. Look, these are talking points for us, but when you peel all the layers off, there's homeless people who do need a helping hand. Out of that 100% homeless, I would speculate and say 20, 30% want to be and can be saved. The rest, I don't know if they can. So we have to figure out what to do. And the reason I say that is they don't want it, the ones on medication, they don't want to take the drugs. Then you have alcoholics. When they sit there, a lot of shelters, Tyler, always have unfilled beds. Why? The homeless don't want to give up their drugs and booze. And that's one of the rules before you can go in there. So yeah, we've got a major problem, and we're not even addressing it because of the corruption within these nonprofits. And we're not exaggerating, Tyler. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember researching for our shows in the past, reading $700,000, $500,000, $200,000 salaries for the executive directors of some of these nonprofits.
Well, and the readers or a viewer of ours, just look at the amount of money that they're granted versus the amount of people that they have to treat. You can take, for example, the tiny home program, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. This is in San Diego County, statewide initiative. Look at the amount of money that was going to be allocated per tiny home. Think about that in relation to how much it would cost you to go to Home Depot, buy a shed and insulate it, and maybe put in AC. There is some huge gap there between how much money is floating around and what's actually being accomplished. And that is going somewhere, and most likely the pockets of the people who are running this grift, essentially.
And you're right, it is a grift. And you can look at a grift this way. The more layers of regulations you add, the greater the grift. There's somebody getting their paws dirty. All right. That's pretty much our show for in terms of the main topics. So, Tyler, let us get to the Cali-Blitz, which I kind of like that title because it's our lightning round. So
I was gonna say let's get blitzed on the Cali-Blitz, but this is a Republican show. I don't know.
There you go.
It's a California.
Of course, I was an ex-sailor, so too many times I was blitzed. I don't say that proudly. say that we're young and dumb, and you learn and grow. All right, the Cali-Blitz. Take number 1, the Luigi Mangione Act debate. So, Tyler, there's a controversial California ballot initiative it's called the Luigi Mangione Act, and it's obviously ignited debate just by the name, and it's meant to keep health insurances from denying you. First of all, it's a train wreck. That doesn't work, as we saw with Obamacare. There's just so many nightmare scenarios. They would go bankrupt within a few years, a generation at tops. So you got to have some balance there. But then to name it Luigi Mangione, what they're saying is we're okay with this kid having murdered somebody. That's the perception they're giving. Your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously this is intending to send a political message. And it may not work as they're talking about. You said, like, look, Obamacare didn't work. This isn't going to work potentially. I think there is something to the public outrage over the insurers. Obviously, the healthcare in the United States of America, the whole situation between the providers, the insurers, the drug companies, it's not working for the American people. We're one of the sickest countries in the world, and we spend perhaps almost the most per capita on healthcare.
No, we do.
It's not working. We do spend the most, yeah. So something's got to change. I don't think Luigi Mangione is the right direction. It's not the right direction, but we got to do something to fix this. I think things like Trump's transparency on prescription drug prices and hospital pricing, that's a good start. We do need to fix the system, but I don't know.
The ultimate flaw, is Luigi Mangione was never denied health care. He had his full health care. He was just pissed because he had a deteriorating back issue, and not even Viagra could help him anymore, on the flip side of it. So he was just a miserable human being who hated everybody instead of looking at the fact, well, what you did when you were young kind of messed you up. But he wanted to blame everybody else and kill the guy for it because he was never denied health care. Back injuries, there is not one. I found this out many years ago. When you go under the knife, odds are it's not going to fix what you got. The percentage of fixing your back when you go under the knife is extremely low. Sadly, he was one of those, and he was just a miserable person. But they're framing this whole lie on the fact that we don't get our health care. We're denied, which is true. But that wasn't Luigi. He's just a cold-blooded murderer. And if that's okay, hey, I don't like this person. So what you're saying is you're condoning me the right to go kill that person I don't like. Because that's what it boiled down with Luigi. All right, so the take number 2, I had it titled wrong. I apologize. We have a new governor or candidate for governor. Governor Javier Becerra. I say it in that mean, racist, bigoted Southern accent because that's how I view Becerra. He's just the Latino version. Javier! One of my friends, and I thought he was right, said, oh, you got Xavier Becerra. I'm like, Xavier? He's Latino. Oh, that's Javier, man. It's Javier Becerra. He goes, no, that's Professor Xavier Becerra. Anyway, I'm droning on. He has announced his run for California governor. Now you have Kamala Harris. We don't know yet. In fact, to be quite honest, nobody knows yet. She's hinting at it, but she may not because she still believes. She still believes she can be president. That's a good one. I needed to laugh. And then Katie Porter, the perennial chubby woman, they're always running. That's a nasty woman to look at. I'm sorry. She's just a nasty woman to look at in terms of her core makeup. See, y'all thought I was talking about her physically. I'm talking about her insides. She's just a nasty, vile woman. And then you have our favorite, Antonio Villaraigosa. You know what his real name is? Tony Villa. He added the Villaraigosa to sound more Latino. True story, my friends. So what are your thoughts in Dr. Xavier Becerra? He's a California AG. He sued 122 lawsuits. He's done more to sue the federal government than to actually help constituents. He oversaw the COVID-19 response, which pretty much put us in jail if we didn't listen to what he deemed. Your thoughts, Tyler?
Oh, gosh. I'm looking at this list of characters. Now we have Javier here, and I don't know who I'd like less. I mean, probably Kamala is still at the bottom of that ranking, but...
Oh, my God, that's a good point. Oh, seriously. Oh, no. So switching topics here. Rank them. Rank those I have just stated here. Dr. Xavier Becerra. He's not really a doctor, and he's not Dr. X. Kamala, Katie Porter, and Antonio Villaraigosa. Rank him from most preferential to least preferential.
Best to worst? All right, I'm going to say Antonio Villaraigosa at the top, probably, because I don't know that much about him. Then Katie, as much as I dislike Katie. And then the person who oversaw California's COVID response, we're going to put them, Javier, they're going to go next. And at the bottom, of course, we have good old Kamala Harris.
That's a great point. So I will say Antonio Villaraigosa, Tony Villa, number one, because he came from an era where Democrats and Republicans were still willing to work together. So he could get the most done for the constituents. Then I would probably put, Kamala enslaved people in jail to keep them from getting out so they can continue slave labor, and Javier Becerra put us in jail for not wearing a mask. But Katie Porter's so dumb, and I don't mean dumb, I mean her political acumen is as bad as it goes, that she wouldn't make one decision. It'd be all her handlers. So I view it as Antonio Villaraigosa or put a gun to my head. That's my take, because that's what the rest of them are. So obviously, y'all can tell we're not big fans of Javier Becerra. You know, at least his last name is his real name. Yeah. All right. The Cali take number 3, miss healthcare deadlines. So we talked about, I don't know if I talked about Medi-Cal when you were in Japan. I may have the Medi-Cal debacle, or if you were here for that episode. But so this comes from a ballot initiative that passed, in essence, the Proposition 35, and to remind people, well, Proposition 35 said our medical system needs to pay the doctors more money so they will treat poor patients. Because what happens is a doctor, hey man, these guys got to afford their own big homes, their own Mercedes, their own Beamers. Now I'm being facetious when I say that, but the point is they have a life to live too. So after a certain point, which many of them is not a high threshold, they won't see medical patients because they can earn more seeing regular patients than what the government's going to pay them. So this proposition was there so they would pay more. Well, I believe that Newsom in California purposely misfiling the necessary paperwork and everything that needed to be done to fund this. And now that they have not filed it, they missed the deadline and no money is going to go to that program. And that money would have taken away from where they want to put the money in other places. Your thoughts on this? Because the public is frustrated. Poor people, the people they're supposed to help, are frustrated.
Yeah, that's really frustrating that they do this. They kind of pulled the rug out from under this plan here. I mean, people are blaming bureaucratic inefficiency, but it seems more orchestrated than this, that this was planned to fail because they want funds allocated somewhere else.
Not to mention, they did not create this. This was imposed on them by the will of the people. So you Democrats out there who are watching because you want to get dirt on me, I'm an ex-sailor. You're going to have to you don't have to dig very deep, but I don't care. But that said is they don't care what you think. They don't care what you want. The only time they care about you is when it's voting time. And even then, it's nothing but hollow promises. Cali take number 4, housing versus environmental solution. This one irks the hell out of me. There's a new bill. And when we say new bill, it hasn't passed or being proposed. That's going to allow urban housing development to just bypass CEQA. Now, not in rural areas, not in suburb areas, but in the city. So they're doing that. Why? I personally believe this is because they want us to live like cockroaches all on top of one another. They want us to get into these micro housing. They don't want anything built in suburbs or the rural area. And this is not me just saying this. This has been pretty much documented in many ways. So they're willing to bypass CEQA for that. I hope this does pass, because there's going to be a lawsuit and it will eventually get extended to the suburbs and rural areas. CEQA is used it's been weaponized to stop any type of building. What are your thoughts? On the surface, it's great, but when you dig down, what do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. You're saying, well, this would then be applied to the suburbs and the rural areas.
But it'll take court. It'll take court to make that happen.
Yeah, it would take court to then extend that ruling. In some sense, we do want, if you live in the suburbs or you live in rural areas, you do want them to be able to build up the cities as tightly and as much as they can.
Oh, good
because
point.
That means more people can live in the cities and not in the suburbs. And maybe they can say, all right, California has met our development goals. We've put X number of units in the urban core, and we don't need to focus as much on trying to build a mid-rise complex where your old neighborhood park was in the suburbs.
No, that's a very good point. Very good point. My issue with that is we still need some building out here, because the American dream is to buy a house. And if you're stuck with a condo, is that really... see, I don't think the best environment to raise a child is cement. I love the suburbs for that. That was one of the huge positives of the suburbs. You have your yard, your parks, et cetera, and I don't want that to go away. If you want to live in the city, God bless you, but we need that option. But you bring up an intriguing point, because I'm wrong. I'm looking at, hey, build more housing, this, that. No, they're going to want to build an apartment complex in the middle of the country. That's how city folk think. That's how these politicians think.
Tyler, well, that's what you're allowed to do. If you look, so you've been on a planning board, if I recollect. I've attended a lot of city council meetings, and you look at the new developments, even in the quote unquote suburbs, the minimum density requirements that are imposed on new construction are such that you can't build a single family home like they did in the 70s or the 80s. Or
no, you can't. Not the bug.
Everything they're building now, even in the suburbs, is essentially condos or glorified townhouses. Even if it's a single family separated house, the airspace between your walls is this big. Your yards are barely big enough. You can't throw a frisbee even. They're just condos, and this is
You're right.
Because of the density restrictions.
Your point. You toot, your neighbor goes, damn, man, what'd you have for dinner? Yeah. So no, you're absolutely right. So you've changed my mind. Keep it in the urban areas. Yeah. All right. Cali take number 5. Okay, rent assistance cuts in San Diego. We talked about it with the schools, education. We're going to cover 2 of these at once. Assistance cuts for people who are low or who need money to help with their rent. The federal government's not going to fund that. And food bank truck, the same thing, that help money for the federal government that help to feed is going to be cut. I am 50-50 on this, meaning I have the compassion. We can't cut those right away. However, this is the state's responsibility. It's not the federal government's responsibility. What's happened, Tyler, is the federal government is there to help subsidize what the state's doing. But instead, the states has stopped spending on that, and it's pretty much a lot of it's fully funded by federal funds. So I think there should be a transition period. And the reason I say that is because they're using those state funds for illegals, as an easy example, for programs that we don't want, for climate programs, for things of that nature. And they're pulling it away, and they count on federal funds to actually feed the finances into these programs. So I'm like, cut the money out. But we need a transition period so these families aren't left in the cold. And the Republican Party needs to come on top of that and say, your state's not giving you the money to do this. And stop allowing them to play the federal government as a boogeyman. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let's take that $50 million Trump defense fund and just roll it into replacing these federal cuts to the rent assistance. How about we do that? Let's do that one.
I agree. All right. Cali take number 7. We jump from 5 to 7. That's what we're efficient here. We Republicans, conservatives are efficient. Military surveillance at the border. So Trump's administration, this is an older story I've hung on to. I was looking for the right spot to pop it in, and I didn't have a right spot. So I'm like, okay, let's make it a Cali-Blitz. So the Trump administration is using military spy satellites to monitor the border. And people who are okay with illegals coming in, they don't like that. And I believe they don't like it, Tyler, because it's too damn efficient and a very powerful weapon. They're talking, it's ethics. What ethics? It's illegal to cross the border. They're using it as a tool to deter that. What are your thoughts on them crying the ethic issues? Because the legal issues don't bother me. That's easily trumped. But they're talking ethic issues. If there was an ethical issue here, like meaning if they were spying on me in my yard, that's one thing, but they're using it for the border. Your thoughts? You think they're just crying because it's too good a weapon?
And that's why they're crying. They're not really concerned about ethical issues. I mean, in their perspective, it's unethical to deport people in the first place, even if they crossed illegally. But using military satellites to watch the border, I think that's fine. maybe there's the concern that, the spy satellites are actually, because there's a lot of houses that are close to the border, and they're going to be spying on American citizens within X number of miles on the border. Maybe that, but that's not really what they're arguing, I don't think.
I mean, I could sit there and see a third, an E3 airman. Damn, you see Mrs. Jones? She's got a new set of thongs there today. They're trying to create a nefarious. Believe it or not, if they could do that, that's what would be happening. You see this, you see that. It's just too funny. I think in a comedic way at times. But the point is they are right from that ethics, but that's not what they're using it for. And you know what, people? It's up to you to elect the right damn congressmen and senators to keep our government's dark side in check. So I see their point, but I believe they're just using it as an excuse, because as Tyler said, once they cross over the border, the progressive side fights to keep them from being sent back. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing Tren de Aragua or Tre de Aragua, whatever they're called. We're seeing judges say, bring back those gang members. Well, he killed somebody. I don't care. That's a vote for the Democrat Party. All right, Cali-Blitz number 8. So this one here, the migrant shelter controversy. So what happens in real life, people? Migrant shelters, they tend to overhelp, meaning they'll knowingly break laws because their morality and their ethics. Well, the Trump administration is saying, well, you're violated smuggling laws. We need those names. We have to find out how you help aid in illegal immigration. And they're threatening legal action, while the operators who run these things argue that they provide humanitarian aid within the law. The point being is the workers are in the government's scope right now. And me, that's common. If you stop the people who are doing it, the next person who gets a job afterwards says, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go to jail. So I think it's a fair deterrent. And if they broke the law to help illegals come over, they should be punished. Your thoughts?
Yeah, if they're breaking the law to help them come over, they should be punished. I did watch, this is in El Paso. This is a different city, but I watched an interview with someone talking about, and they were the director of a migrant shelter, and they're talking about the new harsh rules coming down and the way that they've been interacting with the Trump administration. And if so, let's say a church organization, they're just running a shelter, and now they're being threatened with lawsuits and things. If they're not doing something nefarious and they're just trying to be a humanitarian organization, I don't think they should be dealt with such a heavy hand necessarily.
Well, I think it's a slippery slope. Just follow the law. There's no issue. Yeah. You know? And I'm a God-fearing Christian. But if my fellow Christians breaking the law, I fear God. I don't fear you. You need to abide by the law. Because what you say is in the name of God, it will be used against me one day. Don't believe me? Look at the Puritans. You were screwed if you were accused of being a witch. If you sunk, they're not a witch. But if they were able to bob their way up to the top, they're a witch. They shouldn't be able to do that. So you're damned if you did, damned if you didn't. You know. All right. Cali-Blitz number 9, Tyler. Almost done here. California's road funding shift. This is no story. ABC 10's where I got the story from. I guess they are talking about declining gas tax revenues. EVs are a partial reason. People working from homes and the remote working is another big reason. But this was shot down through pressure, but they're revisiting it again. They want to charge you per mile driven. Now, my issue with this is the easy example I give for you Californians is Riverside County, and then which includes Temecula. Hold on, what county is Temecula?
Yeah, that's County? Riverside.
Okay, it's Riverside. So you have people who live in Riverside County going all the way to San Diego and driving all the way to LA, depending where in Riverside they live. And they're living in Riverside because it's the only place they can go out into the desert to buy a home they can afford. Because that's the desert, Riverside County, pretty much. And those are working class and poor. And they want to do a gas tax mileage on that? I'm like, do it. Because I don't count on the Republican Party, but the smart ones will be able to use this to get elected. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we had our own version of this with Sandag with their road usage charge they want to have, and that just hit immediate public outcry. People don't want this. They don't want a road usage charge. The cost of living is high enough. And yes, eventually they're going to need to have some alternate funding to the gas tax. If California gets what it wants and actually outlaws gas vehicles by 2035, they will have to shift their funding to something else. But it's completely unfair, especially to lower income people, to be hit with a gas tax and a road usage charge. That's just pouring salt in the wound.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, Cali-Blitz number 10. Oh, and this will fail only because there's going to be some Democrats who are going to realize if I do this people will become a one-issue vote because that's how deadly this tax will become towards some families. So, political town halls, Cali-Blitz number 10 in the Bay Area. Tyler, I picked this story because Bay Area Democrats are holding town halls in GOP districts. My issue, one reason we've lost over and over, and those losses became exponential starting 2009, is the Republican Party made a purposeful shift to where they were not going to go campaign in blue districts. You win your race by going into the opposing party's districts to deliver your message. So I applaud Democrats on the strategic point of view, and I bring this up for where the hell you Republicans at? This is what you need to be doing, and you're not. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a smart move by the Democrats, and this is how they're going to be getting votes when it comes to 26 and 28. And the Republicans, we need to start learning to do the same.
We don't have a ground game, Tyler. I always call you the young'un. I don't know how old you were, but in 2009, San Diego County was still a robust, deep red county. And then the state decreed we will not be doing focusing and counting on the ground game as much as the consultant class. They didn't say it that way, but that's what it turned out to become. And our ground game over a couple of cycles became non-existent. And we exponentially became a blue county. And there's no better way to show that is in over 20 years of dominance in the Board of Supervisors being fiscally conservative, having a surplus, to now it's a blue Board of Supervisors. And we are in a couple hundred million in debt, like 120, 130 million in debt. So that's what happens. And we can learn from this. If I ran for office, and like him or not, this is why Carl DeMaio destroyed Andrew Hayes. He was talking to the people almost on a daily basis, you know. And the excuse I got, not from Andrew Hayes, who I really like, I got from his supporters. Well, he's working, William. What do you expect? So what? Then he shouldn't have run, because Carl's out there every day. Democrats are out there every day. You want to stop losing? Get out there every day. You know. The final comment, a final Cali-Blitz, Tyler, is. Oh, actually, do you have any comment on what I just said? And Republicans don't do that. And Carl DeMaio, there's many reasons he became a force, but he destroyed Hayes because he was out there every day. He took a Democrat tactic, which should be every campaign's tactic, and used it to his advantage. Any thoughts on that?
I was going to say that in these deep blue districts, the Democrats have destroyed us so thoroughly, they aren't even out there every day anymore. Case in point, I remember the Amy Reichert versus Monica Montgomery Steppe special election after Fletcher left. Monica barely made any appearances. She just ran a campaign from home. She did a mail-in campaign, essentially. And she knew once she had essentially gotten the jungle primary, was just going to be her and the Republican. She knew she had this in the bag. All she did was secure her support with the unions. And once she had the real power players of San Diego County, the unions, and that was worked out, she knew she didn't need to do anything. She just get herself on the Democrat voter guide, and that was it. I remember going to events. Monica would come, talk to the media, and leave. The people there meant nothing to her. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't answer anyone's questions.
Oh, she's a bigot. She's a bigot. I don't like her. I met her once. I was told we're supporting her. The rhinos here and the right, the center left leaning Republicans, because she was a lesser evil. And I'm like, she's still a Democrat. She's never going to vote for what we want, regardless of what the issue is. You're idiots. Now, Amy got shellacked not because of what you just said. She got shellacked because she had no support from her own party. No support from the state party. And I'm sorry, that's the problem. We think short term. Even in a close race, statistically, she would have probably lost. Would have lost. I would put money on it. But did we become deep blue overnight? No, because every cycle, the Democrats made headway to those red districts. And now those red districts are blue districts. So you've got to make the sacrifice and work hard and go, okay, we lost this race, but we gained 10 points. Next race, let's try to gain 5 points if we can't win it. And then eventually it becomes 2 cycles in, we can win this race. That's what Democrats did. So what you said is an excuse I get every time. And I go, that's because you're a loser. You got to have a long-term, not you, Tyler, but you got to have a long-term plan. You got to have if you don't have a long-term plan, you're going to remain losers. And the only people that benefit off of losers are the people in the power positions. Jim Brote, Jessica Milan Patterson. These are our California Republican chairs, state chairs. They made out like fat freaking rats, off the system. Their bank accounts got fatter than Jim Brote's Michelin Man look. That's a fat man. Yeah, well, when he was ran, he kind of went on. I think he got his stomach up. Whoop, shrunk. I did not like him. Elitist all the way. All right, final talk. And that's me. I don't want to put Tyler in a tough position. That's my belief. Why? I'm a Latino. I don't care what you think of me. I'm an ex-sailor. I do that. Becca Taylor's tragic death. Tragic death anytime somebody dies. Now, the Times of San Diego talked about Becca Taylor. She was a former San Diego Democratic chair. She died in a Nevada crash. She was on her Harley. And she got bumped and she died. It was foggy day, etc., etc. The reason I posted this story, they were like, he didn't get enough punishment. Damn him. He did this. He did that. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is the same party that when Lake and Riley got murdered. Obviously, I use her because she's the example that everybody knows. They were for the illegal. Well, you just didn't understand him. He didn't mean to crush her school. He just meant to kind of pat her on the head before he raped her. That's the type of talk and logic you get out of Democrats. But when it's one of their own, they want the book thrown at the person. And the reason I posted this is I'm tired of the hypocrisy. The judge said, okay, this isn't a bad guy. Horrible mistake. The conditions of visibility were terrible. Were this or that. He's going to do this. But he's got a track record, Your Honor. I'm looking at this situation. You see where I'm getting that, Tyler? The hypocrisy of the left of the San Diego Democrats. And it is hypocrisy. A former chair I spoke to, oh yeah, we're not far apart. We can talk together. The next week she called us all Nazis. So their hypocrisy knows no bounds. Your thoughts on this? First of all, the death is tragic, but your overall thoughts?
Yeah, it just goes back to, well, according to them, it was the summer of love. Mostly peaceful protests. Well, this person really shouldn't have been treated this way. But now the shoe is on the other foot. If you had, in this case, it seems like, the Democratic chair, Becca Taylor, there was potentially some sort of manslaughter case or, involuntary
vehicular
manslaughter by Tanner Boyer, and they want to throw the book at him just because now the shoe is on the other foot. And that really exposes that it's not about justice. It's not about what's right. It's about us and them. That's what it's about. And that's what it's been about.
That's right. And I'm not saying this guy Tanner Boyer should not have gotten off. My whole point is the hypocrisy. You want to throw the book at somebody, but you make every excuse. Oh, it's like that lady on, I forget, she's an idiot. I forget her name. When she talked about the Aurora, Colorado, it was only a few apartment complexes they took over. Justifying the gang.
Yeah, I remember that. What is the acceptable number of apartment complexes that Tren de Aragua could take over? Is it
0?
1, 2?
But in her mind, it wasn't.
Yes. Yeah.
And there you have it, folks. Another episode of Fired Up California is in the books. I want to thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you like and share this podcast. This podcast is unique, and poor Tyler has to take the brunt of the pain I try to give out to Democrats with ugly truth, so you can sit there and see the way. I'm going to have to tone it down if I really want to change minds. But I do talk about ugly truth. Tyler brings it from his own angle, and we appreciate you tuning in. Do not forget to like and share this podcast. Again, bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. grumblingsmedia.com. And our other platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora. You can see this podcast, our other political podcasts, and our sports and our entertainment podcasts under the profile handle Grumblings Media. For Tyler Collins and myself, William Del Pilar, this has been Fired Up California. Stay hot, and we will see y'all next week.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.